go. So welcome everyone. As the slide says, I'm Damon Scott, Chief Executive of Dunbartonshire Chamber of Commerce. So thanks for joining us. We were just laughing there because it's a wee bit like a kid having a birthday party, waiting for everyone to join last minute sort of thing. So I'm glad that we most people that we were waiting for turned out. So yeah, this is the latest in our Together for Business events, and the focus, as many of you know, has shifted a bit to the re-emerging economy and trying to help prepare businesses to start to do business again and provide them with the skills and tools to do so. So we're delighted that we have a fantastic pool of chamber experts to help pass on some of this knowledge to you guys. So I'll pass over to Michael Clerck in a second from Basics and Beyond, who's going to sort of give you an insight into change management and risk management, which is a key element to moving your business forward into the sort of, I hate to overuse it, but the new normal and the new opportunities that are going to be there for us. And I'll let him give an overview. We'll have some questions at the end, and we'll be keeping an eye on the chat function. And if anyone has any questions, pop them in there, and we'll capture those at the end. And please, use your any of the buttons to show any reactions as we go along, if you wish. And I'll let Michael sort of manage the rest of the session from now on. So without further ado, Michael, if I can hand over to yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I hope you're all doing well. What I'd like to do, just to kick off, is to get everybody a few seconds just to introduce themselves very briefly. So your name, your business, what you're all about. You can do that in about 10-15 seconds. That'd be great. Just so everybody knows who's here, and then we'll move on into the presentation. So I'm going to go around the room as I see the screen. So first of all, Paul Kingham, if you'd like to introduce yourself, unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Paul Kingham. I'm director of Kingsmith Property Group, and we're based in Clydebank, and we are a private residential property investment business.
Thank you. Jill McCarthy, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi there, I'm Jill. I run a business called Your Dancer Silent Discos. Last year I was doing the Mulgai Highland Games and lots of weddings and the West End Festival and the Canal Festival and things like that. And this year I'm just doing some hiring headsets to families to run their own silent discos in their garden. So that's going really well, and I'm really busy at the moment, just hiring out these headsets. So that's me. Thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Teresa, yeah, and unmute yourself and say hello.
Hi everyone, nice to see some regular faces. I'm Teresa Robertson, and I am director and owner of my business Endrick Consulting. And my business has various connotations, but fundamentally it's all about people, culture and change.
Oh, very slick, impressive. Well done. Philip Briscoe, hi.
Hi everyone, my name is Philip Briscoe. I'm sales manager of European Circuits Limited and director of Dunbartonshire Chamber. We manufacture and assemble printed circuit boards for various industries.
Right, thanks. Jason, hi Jason.
Hi Michael, how are you doing? Hi everybody. My name is Jason George. I look after business development for a company called Columbus UK. We're based at the Mulgai Enterprise Centre, and we provide managed communications, technology services and IT support. Thanks, Michael.
Cheers, Jason. Nick Allen, hi. I think we met.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Allen. I'm a chartered surveyor. I'm based in Mulgai. I work as a consultant for a number of different companies and housing associations, and I'm also contracted to the Scottish Government as well. So not very busy at the moment. My garden's never looked better, and I'm delighted to be here this afternoon to hear what's going on.
Hi Nick, good to meet you. Simon, hi Simon.
Afternoon everybody, Simon Organ, Video Marketing and Sales. We produce business promotional and training videos.
Like the background, looks very, very intellectual.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. I'm going to go into the presentation. I'll introduce myself as part of that. So today I'm going to talk about change management and risk management. These are two workshops that I deliver to various organisations. Typically they're either a couple of hours or a half day each, depending on the context. So what I've done here is taken the key points from both of them, merged them together, and I'm going to deliver this over about 30 to 40 minutes. If you do have any questions or any comments, just pop them into the chat and we'll pick them up towards the end. If we've got someone else join us. Anne, hi, how are you doing, Anne? If you want to unmute yourself and say hello, who you are, what your business is and what you do. So Anne, unmute yourself and introduce yourself. You're still muted.
So, hello everybody, I am Anne Bowen and I operate People at Work HR Consultancy. So I've been in business for about a year and I'm enjoying all the presentations that everyone's joining, and I thought the Manage and Change one would be really good to tap into today.
Welcome, good to see you, and hopefully we'll all get something out of this. And as I was saying, if you have any questions, pop them into the chat and we'll catch up on them as we go through the process. So I'm going to share my screen now. So at any point, just if you want to ask a question and you want to put it in the chat, there's a reaction button on the sort of bottom right hand side. Just raise your hand and we can interrupt and have a chat then. Okay, so can you all see this, how to successfully manage change in my fantastic photo in the middle there?
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, excellent, good show. Okay, so we're going to talk today about managing change, and obviously in the current environment, it's very timely because we're all going through change in one way or another. But with respect to what business you're in, the end of this year is going to be very different from the end of last year. I mean, the end of last year, we're all talking about Brexit. And then we were all talking about the environment when we had Greta telling us what we're all doing wrong. And then we had COVID. So even in the past sort of 6, 7, 8 months, things have moved on dramatically for everybody. And we just have to deal with it and get on with it. But for some it's a challenge. For others, I'm done well out of it because they've been in the right business at the right time. But for many, many, many of us, moving forward is going to be a really significant change to how we run, how we operate our businesses. So I'm going to move on now, hopefully. Okay, so I'm Michael Clerck and I'm the Director of Basics and Beyond. Helping you with your business growth. So it's helping you to exploit you and your business's full potential by instilling focus to make sure you stay on track with your business, instilling a structure, including making sure you have quantifiable objectives, your market strategy, managing your cash flow, risk management, and various other key attributes that you need to do to manage your business. And I bring accountability, making sure that you do what needs to be done when it needs to be done. That's helping you with time and task management. So that's what I'm all about, and we'll move into the presentation now. So what I'm going to do is a very, very brief overview, talk about some of the change influencers. Then I've got a very brief exercise. So we're going to put you into breakout rooms for 5 minutes, and I'll come to that in a moment. Then we'll look at the strategies for managing change successfully. And then I'll share some of the common mistakes that people make. And then towards the end, we're going to give a bit quick overview on risk management and how to deal with risk. And risk is very critical, especially at this time. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and we're talking about going back into business and how to manage those risks and understanding what all those risks are. It's as big a challenge as big a challenge as actually managing them. Okay, so we are confronted with the challenges of a new business landscape to which we all need to become accustomed. Sadly, 75% of change initiatives fail to achieve their intended objectives. And that's a statistic that's been around for a while, and it's probably going to get worse as things go on, as people are more and more challenged. So why might change be required? So there's internal influences. These are certainly not a comprehensive list, but things to think about. So it could be staffing issues. It could be a structural change. It could be a change to your product, your market. It could be changes to your finances. It could be methods, how you go about your business. And certainly with the social distancing and all that kind of stuff that's going on just now, there will be a lot of change in the methods. Maybe you're moving location. Your business might be expanding, which would be great. And unfortunately, you might be contracting. But how do you manage all of that? And what do you do to make sure that you come out the other side successfully? And then there are external influences. And we mentioned before about Brexit, and we spoke about the environmental issues, but today that's very different. So it could be your competition. So what are they doing that's going to impact how you operate and manage your business? It could be a change in regulation, which we're all experiencing now with the impact of COVID-19. The micro and macro economy, again, these are impacting everybody just now. It could be your markets have changed. It could be a supplier issue, which a lot of businesses are struggling with just now. It could be a business environment, and obviously politics, and obviously Brexit was very much a key issue in that context. So there's many, many other things, and for each of you and each of your businesses, you're sitting down and thinking about, what are the internal things that are going to change how my business is going to look in 3 or 4 or 5 months' time, and what's going out there externally. And it's much easier to predict the internal things than the external things, because none of us have a crystal ball, but it's good to sit down and think about it and how we're going to deal with it. So there's a little exercise for you. Family-run cider company, Aspel, and it's spelled cider with a Y, that's how they spell it, and that's something to do with the traditional method of producing cider. It was founded in 1728, so it's a very long established family business. But as the cider market demand rapidly increased, they were struggling to meet the demand. To get the investment they needed, they sold out to a US beer giant in 2018. And then in 2019, they announced a £10 million upgrade and expansion plan. So what I'd like to do for the next 5 minutes in the breakout rooms is just think about how would you share that information? How would you go about that process? And what do you think it would look like for you? So if you are the CEO of Aspel Cider, business been family owned for 380 years, suddenly being sold out to a US beer giant. So how would you deal with that, and how would you communicate that? So that's a little question for you. So I'd like to spend 5 minutes on that. It's now 2:45, so to 10 to 3. In your little rooms, appoint a spokesperson and just come up with 3 key points that you would like to share at the end of your discussion. Okay? So Paul's going to put us into breakout rooms now.
Yep, that's the rooms open. They'll be open for 5 minutes, and then you'll have a warning to come back into the main room. So you should have now an option to join your room. It's quite abrupt when we all get booted out of our rooms, but I think hopefully that was long enough for everybody. And back to you, Michael. Everybody comes back on mute, so you'll be on mute, Michael.
Okay, am I back online?
You're back online, but if you'll need to share your screen again, because your screen share switches off when we come back into the rooms.
Right, okay, you need to help me with this now. Right. Okay, right, so room 1, who is your spokesperson? What have you got to say? What are you going to help us with here?
So shall we take room 1 first?
Yeah.
So who is in room 1?
Possibly us. Was it Anne? Were we room 1?
I know I wasn't.
Assume it was us.
Right, on you go.
Yeah, so it was Damon, Christopher, myself, and so what we talked about was the things that we thought would need to consider in the change, and what the owners of the company would be considering would be managing the people aspect of a change programme. Employees that are working for a small company might worry about moving on to a bigger company. We talked about positioning of the product and the marketing aspects of it. That would be really important in terms of if the customer base has been enjoyed, you know, the product of a small company. Do they worry about quality being affected when when it gets taken over by a bigger organisation? And then looking at communications and change programmes for staff and customers, and that's what we discussed.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Good points there. Room 2. Nick, is that you?
Yes. Well, we all nominated Jason, but somehow he ducked it back to me, which was sensational. I made a note of that, Jason. Don't worry about it. No, well, we were very clear on the message for staff. The first part of the communication was about letting them understand the reasons for doing what we did in terms of securing the future, allowing us to expand and grow and develop and invest in the staff and the equipment for the long term, and also facilitate research and development to expand our customer base. And also, this was a process we've gone through that retains our identity and the links with the history of the company and the history of its location. So that was the first part, was about communicating this and why we're doing it with the staff. And then people, suppliers who work with us as well, to let them understand why we went through it all. And the third part of the communication was about talking to agencies that could support and assist with trade links or exporting, because clearly our client base was going to expand dramatically, and we have the opportunities to go into dozens and dozens of new countries, all with complex import-export legislation. So it was about speaking to companies and agencies that could help us take the thing forward. Have I missed anything, guys?
No, that's a good summary, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sterling effort.
Right, and room 3.
Okay, that's me as spokesperson. The 3 key points that we've noted is, number 1, I would say, is positioning the vision. What does that vision look like? And obviously the brand perhaps that supports that, and ultimately buy-in from everyone involved, internally and externally. Number 2, which is equally as important as number 1, is communicate, 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 because that communication will position the strategy, the way forward, and equally bring in engagement from everyone. And number 3 is leadership. Normally in times of change, you should have a united leadership team and perhaps even a senior management team, so everyone is coming at it from a positive approach, irrespective of their own emotions and feelings, so that they don't portray that to their staff within the business.
Yeah, it's a lot about Peel's, but a bit of an expert on the HR side in that room, I suspect.
Say that again, sorry?
Sorry, it's a bit of an expert on the HR side in that room, I suspect.
Perhaps.
A slight advantage, maybe. Okay, let's move on. And so really what we're saying there is that it's a traditional business which has been going through generation to generation to generation, and people are concerned that they're going to lose that tradition. That was a real major concern about selling out to a US beer giant, was that a small family business which had expanded and employed local people through generations was going to lose that identity. So everybody touched on that, and a few other points, very valid points. So well done each and every one of you. So moving on. So why do change initiatives fail? So look at why they fail, and then we'll look at what you should be doing to make sure you get it right. Going kind of back to front, but think about what the discussions you've had in each of your rooms and what we've shared there, and then we'll talk through some of these. So too much focus on strategy and actions. Yes, everybody made the point that it's not just about the business, it's about the people in the business as well. And that's as critical to make sure that we move forward successfully. So if you don't pay enough attention to the people stuff, as I call it, then you're setting yourself up to have a difficult time ahead. And a lot of businesses fail simply because they neglect that to their detriment and focus too much on what they need to be doing rather than who they're doing it with and who they're doing it for. So if you want to successfully manage change, what should you do? So first of all, number one, where are we? So it's a clear understanding of where the business is today, and that's really your first step. So get your picture right of where we are today and where do you want to go. So be realistic about the future. Keep it familiar. Don't create something that people can't relate to, and create an engaging picture of what needs to be achieved. So a few of you made a point there that we can expand the business. It's great for everybody. We're going to invest in the people here. We're going to make sure we've got longevity and job creation and so on. So it's creating a picture that people can engage with emotionally as well as obviously from a financial perspective. And are we ready to start? So first of all, you need to make sure everybody appreciates why we're making the change. So once you're on the starting blocks, make sure everybody's aligned with that. And then to make sure that the capabilities are in place to successfully achieve the change. There's no point in going on a journey if you haven't got everything you need to make sure you get to the end successfully. And then from a practical perspective, so be as clear about what will change as about what will replace it. So if you've gone from making cider in traditional methods, then you're going into creating cider using much more modern technology, then people need to understand why you're doing that, and not only just the raison d'etre, but all the benefits is going to be to everybody across the board. Create participation. No one likes change that's forced on them. People respond favourably to change when they help create it. So create a team environment. Have everybody involved. Don't just tell them what's happening. Make them part of that process. And then how do we manage the journey? So sustain continuous engagement to make sure that everybody's on board all the time. But keep the communication, keep it simple and keep it honest. Don't bamboozle the people you're talking to, whether it's your staff, your markets, your environment, whatever. Make sure that people understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And maintain interest in the communication. Use different methods to communicate. But can remember to appeal to people's emotions. Keep them engaged emotionally. And make sure the essential leadership is in place. It's not just about the doing, it's all about leading as well. And I'll come back to that in a moment. That it's really important that you're genuine about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Be optimistic, so create a very positive picture and be upbeat. So let people know good reasons why you're doing it, and don't focus on the negatives. But remember, completion is not the end of the road. There'll always be change ahead, and make sure that we learn from what we're doing now and getting it right in the future. And for all businesses, it's really important to be agile. You don't know what's happening next week. You need to be ready to adapt. You need to have in your toolkit everything you need to make sure that when you have to move forward in a different direction, everything's in place to do it successfully. So any comments or anything you want to add to that, feel free to stick it in the chat or let me know you want to have a discussion about it. So very briefly, what are the things that people do wrong? First of all, not having a clear strategy or inadequate leadership. You kind of know you need to change and you know what needs to be changed in a certain idea, but you're not really very clear about it. So it's worth taking the time to actually get it down in black and white, why you're doing it, what you need to achieve, and then make sure you're providing leadership towards that new direction or that new objective. And make sure you've got a compelling case. If you're not convinced about the change, then why should anyone else participate? So make sure that you've got a very compelling reason. You touched on that in each of the breakout rooms there, why ASPO had to invest for the future. Avoid going straight from strategy to action. So there we are, we're going to change what we're doing. We're making blue widgets today, we're going to make red widgets tomorrow. So John, you go off and get the materials for the red widgets. Fred, you go off and get the marketing right. And Sid, you go and make sure we've got the packaging correct. So these three guys are saying, well, what's going on here? Why are we doing this? What's happening? Why should we be doing this? Why have we got to go and do that all of a sudden? So make sure you create a journey for people and take them on that journey, and don't be seen to be jumping straight into you're doing X, Y, and Z, or we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. Don't start too late. You know, for example, just now, a lot of businesses are preparing to be opened up. So if you're the last shop in the high street to open, what market share are you going to get? So if you're too slow following where the market trends are going, then it's going to be detrimental to you and to your business. So make sure you keep in touch with what's happening. Also make sure that you're ready to move. And as I said earlier, be ready to move, be agile and move swiftly. I'm sure we've all seen on the news and various other places that you see folks standing outside an office block or outside a factory with their mobile phones, and they're learning through the news media what's happening before they hear it from their immediate superiors, their managers and bosses. So make sure that you communicate effectively, but make sure you do it in the right process and procedures to make sure that the most important people, those that help you make your business successful, are the people that are going to find out about it first of all. Very often you hear businesses talking about why they're changing, and it's very often from a financial perspective, and they don't create that emotional engagement, so people don't buy into the change. If they're not bought into the change, they won't support you to do it successfully. So we need to make sure that you take on board everybody's feelings. People are not going to agree with you. You can't have everybody on board 100%. If you do, that's fantastic, but then make sure that you engage with them emotionally as well as with the rational reasoning. And then don't assume everybody shares enthusiasm for change. There'll be traditionalists in any business, and any change is anathema to them. They'll not want to change. They want to do it as it was, the way they did it, the way their fathers did it, the way their grandfathers did it. And that's a challenge that you have to face, and you have to take them along that journey with you. So what sort of argument can you make to those people to make sure that they maybe not necessarily engage 100% with it, but appreciate why you're doing it and how they can help you do it successfully. And I've been in situations where we've been told this is what we're doing, and people turn around looking at each other and saying, what's all this all about? And not having that real clear explanation, and told just get on with it, just do it. It doesn't create a nice environment, and it will not be successful in the long term. So moving on, there's lots of these, unfortunately. So lack of budget, time, skills, and resource. So yeah, you know you want to change, you jump into making the change, but have you thought about what it's going to cost you, how long it's going to take you? Do your team have the right skills in place to do that? Do you have enough people to do it? You're managing your business, you're satisfying your customers' needs, you've got this additional burden on your business. How are you going to cope with it all? And how are you going to make sure that you come out the other end of that successfully? And again, we talked about communication a few times. You make sure it's appropriate. Make sure that people understand the message. So not involving everyone internally and externally. I had an experience many years ago when we were introducing change in a particular production line. And we've created a team, a cross-functional team, to make sure that everybody who had an input was able to make that input, take the information back to the production team, share it, get their concerns and bring it back to the core team. And we found that there was people who didn't buy into that, and I'll come back to that in a moment. This is about the informal organisation. There's always somebody out there, no matter who the boss or the manager or the leader is, there's always somebody in the team who has potentially more influence, who appears to see them as a leader who recognises their needs, wants and desires better than you do. So you have to make sure that you engage with that informal leader in the team and know who it is, first of all, obviously. I do a bit of work with the Prince's Trust. We were discussing this at a meeting, and what they were telling me was that when they do that, when they were able to, when they're doing their outward bound stuff, you had the leader from the Prince's Trust and you had your team in the outward bound training. There was always another person in that team who the other rest of the members of the team would look up to before they looked up to you. If you had to identify who that person was and make sure they got them on board before they did anything, because they didn't do that, you were up against it. You'd always have that negative influence in the team, countermanding everything you wanted to do. So make sure that you engage with everybody internally and externally. So your customers, your suppliers, your market, whoever else that you need to talk to, make sure they understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, how it's going to look at the end of the day. So it's important to understand who you're communicating with, what the message is going to be, and how you're communicating it. So don't just focus on the long term. Yeah, we're going to be in 6 months' time, we're going to be here, 12 months' time, we're going to be there. What's happening tomorrow? If you're not sure what's happening in the next 3, 4, or 5 weeks, then you're never going to achieve what you expect to achieve in 6 months. So, yeah, we're coming out of COVID. Things are getting relaxing with the restrictions. We know we're going to be back in a new norm, as people call it, towards the end of the year or later. But what you have to do tomorrow, next week, next month, to make sure that your business is going to survive and be still in business when that time comes. And there will be resistance, and you have to deal with that proactively. So it's helpful to know what the resistance might be, what it looks like, what it sounds like, and have an argument to deal with that. I say argument not in an aggressive sense, but in an assertive manner, to make sure you share your empathy with people who don't necessarily agree with what you want to do, but put across the message that gets them to buy in to what you're trying to achieve and the benefits to them and maybe to their family, to their teammates and so on, their work team. So we've now decided we're moving forward and we're going to change the business in a particular direction, or content, or product or service. But any change will introduce some risk. And I'm going to talk very, very briefly about managing risks, because managing risk is very critical to making sure that things move along swiftly, successfully, and achieving the goals. So if you are risk averse and you don't want to make change, you're frightened of making change, then that's going to have a very negative impact on your business. You'll not move forward, you'll stagnate, and you'll be left behind. So being risk averse is not helpful. But moving forward, having a risk management strategy is essential. It really is not an option. It should be part and parcel of your business management toolkit. And risk management shouldn't be a threat to the business. If you think about the SWOT analysis, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, risk management should be part and parcel of all of that. And don't fear failure. As Albert Einstein said, I'm misquoting him here, but the guy who never made a mistake never made anything. So if you don't want to move forward and stay where you are, that's great, do what you're doing, but you'll be left behind. You'll not be there where everyone else is going. You'll be on a different page from everybody else in the future. So don't fear failure. Look on it as an opportunity to learn. If you don't get it right, yeah, find out what went wrong and make sure you don't make that same mistake again. So managing risk. So there's proactive and there's reactive. So we'll talk about more about proactively, and then we'll come on to the reactive. So proactively, so identify the risk. So can you mitigate the risk? Can you eliminate it? And can you put a plan to deal with it? So think about what are the what-if scenarios? What can go wrong? Then think about what is the probability of it happening? And what impact will it have on you and your business? And then what can we do to prevent it, to minimize the impact or deal with it if it happens? And share with you a little tool to help you with this process. So it's a risk register, and really every business should have a risk register, and not something you should create, put in the drawer and forget about. You should be looking at it and updating it regularly. So I've created some make-believe scenarios here under the risk description. But for you and your business, think about what all of the what-ifs, and think about what the impact will be. So if it's a low impact, you'll score at a 1, medium at 2, high or 3. What's the probability of it happening? Again, 1, 2, or 3. Then multiply those two together and then think about how you're going to deal with it. You know, for example, lots of people are working from home at the moment, very reliant on their phone lines, their mobile phone signal, their internet capability and so on. So if any of that drops out, they can't work from home. That can have a major impact on your business. They're in an area where the internet signal, the mobile signal is weak, probability of happening is very high. So what would you do? How would you deal with that? What sort of contingency could you put in place? Another operative thing that might happen is that client cancels the order. Again, a score at the impact, probability again. And it may well be it's because they have a cash flow issue. So maybe their terms of payment might be relaxed a little bit to help them, and then they might not cancel the order. So speak to them, ask them why, try and address the issue. A stock delivery might be late. It might not have a major impact. Probability might be low, but just be aware of it. And if it does ever happen, then understand why and make sure that either you or your supplier can make sure you minimise the risk of ever happening again. And then a key staff member resigns, impact will be high. Probability might be a 2, they might be looking to move elsewhere. So the score is quite high, so you have to think about that. So do you have somebody trained up as a backup? Are all your processes documented? So somebody else can immediately pick up where they left off. So if you're too reliant on one person and what the capabilities, then you're exposing your business and exposing yourself. So think about what the what ifs in your scenarios, in your environment, and how you're going to deal with them. And I say, don't put that away in a drawer, forget about it. Look at it all the time and make sure you're keeping it updated. So reactively, what went wrong? Make sure you very clearly understand what went wrong and what was the impact. So was it financial? Was it a customer? Was it an environmental thing? You understand what the impact was. And then why did it go wrong? So drill down to the root cause. And that might, somebody said, be like a child. Ask that question, why? And ask it 5 times. And if you drill down to the root cause and find the root cause and you repair the root cause, then it'll not happen again. But if you only ask that question, why, 3 times, and you don't get to that root cause and you come to a partial fix, then the risk is it could happen again. So make sure you actually drill down to what was the real root cause of it. So think about how did we respond? Did we respond appropriately or inappropriately? And make sure that should it occur again, that we do respond properly. But this should feed back into your what if scenarios. So what if that happens again? How should we respond so we don't get into this reactive mode again? And then how do we stop it happening again? And that's really all about updating your risk register. What happened? What was the impact? What's the probability? How are we going to mitigate it? How are we going to prevent it in the future? So you can look at it from 2 perspectives. One is anticipating what might go wrong and be prepared for it. The second perspective is, yeah, it went wrong. My gosh, what did we do wrong? Why did it go wrong? How do we stop it happening again? And making sure we've got all the tools in place to stop it happening again. And that could be about training. It could be about financial planning. It could be about all sorts of different things. So don't limit yourself to a small number of issues. Think about the whole breadth of your business and what can impact it. So that first quotation, successful business people are those that are good at calculating risk and taking appropriate risks rather than high risk takers. So where do you see yourself on that spectrum? Are you risk averse? Do you take calculated risks, or are you a high risk taker? And obviously where you are on that will depend how you process down that risk management routine. If you're a high risk taker, then obviously you have to have better tools in place to help you survive. If you're risk averse, then you won't be doing anything anyway. And if you're in the middle, then that's when really you're really managing what's happening and being appropriate in your processes and what you're doing. So to be resilient, and really risk management is all about building resilience into your business. So you consider the impact of your reputation, your finances, and what the competition are doing. I'm not going to enter these in a lot of detail, but reputational, there's a lot of good stories around. We're all aware of Gerard, the jewellers, Gerard Ratner, the jewellers, and how he managed to write his business off at an AGM by actually saying the absolute wrong thing in front of an audience. Now, whether it was set up to fail or not, I don't know. I never found that out. But he was asked how he can sell his stuff so cheaply. He pretty much said it was rubbish. And people stopped buying it because his market were people who could only afford to buy what he was buying, and then to create that disreputable agenda around it really knocked his business back. And he had a major international business which totally collapsed because of that. You know, somebody said to him, how can you sell earrings at £4.99? He said, my earrings are cheaper than a Marks and Spencer's prawn sandwich, and the Marks and Spencer's prawn sandwich will last longer. So if you just bought those earrings the day before, how does it make you feel? So think about how your message you're putting across. Elon Musk, the well-known entrepreneur, he wrote billions off his business when he tweeted that he thought his share price was too high. And overnight, he lost a huge amount of money out of his business. Having said that, he has recovered. In fact, Elon Musk's Tesla business has now got a higher market value than Toyota, and it only sells about 3% of the number of vehicles that Toyota sells. So he's doing something right. Again, it's very high risk, but he's doing it right. And then more recently, last week I think it was, or maybe the week before, the CEO of CrossFit, the fitness company, he tweeted something very inappropriate about Black Lives Matter, and a lot of his very high-level endorsements were withdrawn, and he was forced to retire. So what you say, how you say it, where you say it, is really important. So I'm not going to go and spend any time on the financial and the competition sides. I'm sure you know yourself in stories and share stories from there. So the components of risk management. Recognise that both a threat and an opportunity. As I mentioned earlier, think about the SWOT analysis. So think about your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. Build that into your risk management. So clearly understand your risk appetite. And is to remember that managing risk is not a static process. It must be frequently revised. So don't create your risk register, stick it in a drawer and forget all about it. Have a look at it regularly and keep it updated. And continually challenge your underlying risk assumptions, because what you assume today might not necessarily be correct tomorrow or next week or the next month. So continually challenge those. There's a couple of quotes to finish up with. This is Steve Dunlop, the Chief Executive of the Scottish Enterprise, said this thing about 6 months ago. So how do you take more risk? And how do you adapt to ever-changing circumstances? And that was probably a little bit of crystal balling when you didn't know, nobody knew what was going to happen with the coronavirus. But then we're all faced with ever-changing circumstances, and we're all facing very different risks, and how we're going to deal with all of that. So courageous leaders take risks. Their boldness inspires their team, excites customers, and positions their companies as leaders. Yeah, if you want to be the next Branson or Tom Hunter or whoever, you have to take risk. It's how you manage that risk that's really important. So courageous leaders don't shirk bold actions because they don't fear failure. And that was Bill George from the Harvard Business School. So don't feel failure. Look at it as an opportunity to learn to do things better and differently the next time. So thank you. Bit of a whistle-stop tour. I hope you got something out of that. And any questions or any comments, feel free to share them.
Thanks very much, Michael. That's amazingly insightful, and I think there's some. I think what we need to remember, I should couch this. So we've got a real mix of people here. Those with teams and who are probably managing change on a weekly basis, if not daily in some circumstances, right through to sole traders, new businesses, and also those that I guess this is really interesting for those who are working with other businesses as well. So I'm really glad we've got a couple of HR experts here who can maybe sort of input and also take from what we've covered there. Obviously, it's a key time for change. So I don't know if I'll put someone on the spot actually to give a bit of feedback at some point to see how they've dealt with change. If I can get to Paul Kingham, maybe are you available? I know you're relatively.
I'm available.
Yes, good. I don't want to take you back, but I know that you know, just to start the conversation, I know that you obviously it's taken a few years with King & Property Group. It's kind of relatively recently that you've bitten the bullet and moved to full time on the business, and with Marianne and the We Achieve. You guys have been quite inspiring in terms of quite a late. In your, I was speaking to another CEO of a chamber actually, and she was 40 before she set up her first business. And then sort of became CEO 10 years later from that. And you guys have really bitten the bullet in terms of the change.
Yeah, I mean, Mary Ann's had businesses in the past, but we've been 47 when I set up Kingsmith Property Group, so we've been going for about 3 years. But my past life in the NHS was a project manager, Prince 2 project manager. So change is inevitable, as they say, except from vending machines. Where it's hit or miss. But yeah, all of that, Michael, makes total sense in terms of actually having a plan, knowing where you are to start off with. I always liken it to hill walk. I like using hill walk analogies because you know where you are, you know where you want to be, but planning the route's very crucial to make sure that you avoid any cliff edges and things like that. And the risk management side of it as well, I think that was spot on. I think a lot of small businesses don't really consider risk. And this whole lockdown, the whole virus thing is one of these sort of risks that, in the NHS I say that past tense, plan for regularly in terms of pandemic virus and what the impact it would have on operations. Whereas a small business probably doesn't plan that and necessarily have the buffer to have been able to cope with it. Hence the reason there was a lot of panic initially when the whole thing started off with how are we going to survive. And I think that's settled down now as people have seen that their initial fears have been mitigated through actions of the government from furlough and various grants and things that have happened. In terms of our business, change is something that, our business is based around projects. Basically, we buy properties, we do them up, we sell them on, or we rent them out either for ourselves or other people. So everything we do comes with an element of risk because there's unknowns to those projects, whether or not we strip a building back and find that it's got damp that we weren't expecting, something like that. And then I'd probably need to phone Nick and get advice. He's shaking his head there. But yeah, the whole thing's very, very well covered, Michael.
Okay, good. How did you respond to this current crisis? Because I know a lot of people here have got sort of, I guess it's great when you're busy because you responding to something positive is quite, a good problem to have. But you guys had to furlough, you had to, the property market. How did that fit into your sort of
I think there was a degree of having a bit of foresight on some of these things in terms of horizon scanning and what's out there. What are those? I think the acronym that we used to use is PESTLE analysis in terms of what are the sort of political, economic, social, technical, legislative, and I think it's environmental aspects of your business that could give you problems going forward. And one of those in terms of environment is looking at what's happening. So when things are going on in the news in December and things like that, I'm thinking, right, okay, is that going to have an impact on us? And then you find out, well, actually the stock market's reacting to this. So yeah, they're obviously predicting there's going to be problems here. So then start planning. And it's all about what those plans mean. And I think I said that when I did the talk on, or maybe I didn't, there's a military term that no plan survives first engagement with the enemy. So basically, it doesn't matter how much you plan, you have to be ready to adapt your plans as soon as you hit the ground, basically, because things start changing. So if you've got an initial plan, like you may know, I'm going to go up the mountain in that route, but you find out that one of your colleagues or fellow hill walkers can't quite manage it, so you end up having to take a more gentle route. You have to be able to have that adaptability within your plans. So when we went into lockdown, there was a few things that we were hoping would happen and they didn't. One of them was a refinance on a couple of our properties. So I was expecting to get a large sort of injection of money coming in when these properties refinanced, but that didn't happen because of something that changed. The Registrar of Scotland closed down and and at the last minute, and we didn't get that money in. So it's like, right, well, okay, well, that means that we're now going to have to rejuggle and change our plan. And what's the implications of that? And it's just constantly looking at how your business reacts to those external factors.
No, that's really useful to hear how you know, businesses dealt with change and brought in some of those elements that Michael. Obviously, Paul's from a finance background, so he's really lucky that he can you know, have all his financial figures ready to jig around as well. I think that's.
You don't have to be overly financial. You just need to know what's coming in and what's going out, and just know your numbers. And I think a lot of business people don't love their numbers enough. They know that their bank balance has got money in it, and it doesn't go down or it goes up gradually, so they know they're making money, or they're staying static. But having a detailed analysis of it sometimes helps, so that you can actually change what you're doing, cancelling standing orders, or taking steps to furlough staff or bring them back, because it might be better to actually have them working for you and generate revenue, if possible, than furloughing them, which is one of the things that we did. We furloughed one of our staff to start off with, and then brought them back after a month, because that was actually probably better economically for us.
That's good. So we've got any other questions or inputs even in terms of people who've had experiences of change or can kind of relate to what Michael sort of talked about there, or have come across clients who might have sort of brought on board some of those topics at all?
Damon, can I come in?
Yes, sure, go for it.
It's just Michael, thanks again. That was Damon used the word insightful. It was very helpful. Thank you. A little bit about risk. Because I have a cross section of clients, and I'm also contracted to the Scottish Government and the judiciary, so I've got a range of. I go from risk averse to quite risky sometimes, depending on who my client is. And I think it's about, you use the word agile. I think I'm not necessarily ploughing the same furrow with the same clients. So as someone I'm very cautious with, and other ones I think I can see an opportunity, so therefore you've got to be a bit riskier. It's like Paul's analogy. He wants to get to the top a bit quicker. He sees the cloud clears, so he makes a dash for it, or he sticks to the path. So I think it's just recognizing that, you know, there's a scale of being risk averse. But thank you, that was very helpful. And Paul, I'd be happy to give you advice.
That's great.
I think there might be some conflicts of interest there on some of the properties that we look at. Or Nick, rather, sorry.
No, that was a good bit of input as well, and you know, I think you've highlighted one of the things that, and I guess it's a nice position to be in as well, where, you know, businesses that I've come across over the years that have taken risks, the best position is where you've got a bit of a varied portfolio. If you're in a lucky enough position to, you know, do that, and I've definitely see businesses that are adapting, and I mean, we had an estate agents supplying PPE within the last month or so. So there's been some real adaptability and agility. But certainly, if you've got one part of your business that you know is maybe more stable. My father was a stockbroker, and so he'd always have a mix of those sort of water companies, which were a banker, but sort of lower yield and gradual, and the high ones. So I think that's another thing to think about when it comes to change as well. Having a bit of stability allows you to take risks at the other end of the spectrum. So
I think what Nick was saying was very relevant as well. The entrepreneurs tend to have a higher risk appetite than let's say the public sector, which has got a very low risk appetite, and you know, they're much more willing to take. And an analogy of that is what we were talking about before we came on the call there, where somebody went and used the phrase, "It's sometimes better to ask for forgiveness than permission." Now that would suggest that you've got a relatively high tolerance to risk, because you're quite happy to take that risk and ask for forgiveness if it all goes wrong. But other people would have a very low appetite at risk and think, "Oh, you can't do that. You actually have to get all your ducks in the line before you start." But you'll find that people in business and entrepreneurs tend to have a much higher tolerance to risk, because that's why they're in business, because they're more willing to take risk. But it's, as Michael said, it's managing it, and it's actually identifying it and making sure that you've got an educated risk plan.
No, that's really useful. Well, unless we've got any more hands up or burning inputs here, I'll draw this to a close.
The only other one thing I was going to say on Michael's risk register, the first one was dodgy telecoms. I think they should have a word with Jason and his team, was what I would probably put there as being one of the mitigating factors if your telecoms are going to be that unreliable.
Absolutely. Good replug there.
Damon, can I add, thank you, Michael. I think it's reinforced what I've been doing throughout lockdown in terms of identifying and managing risk within the business and putting the planning in place to mitigate that. And one of the key things that I looked at was our customer base and where our customer base is in terms of vertical sectors, and what I can do to mitigate any risk if some of those customers fall by the wayside over the next 3, 6, 12 months, and what might the impact be on our business after furlough ends. And some unfortunately, some businesses do go under. That has a financial impact on my business. What can I do to mitigate that risk? And one of the key things that we're putting in place is a plan to move into public procurement, because we do local public sector business with some councils, but we don't do a great deal. So we can enhance that. We've got a plan in place to actually drive that forward now and lessen risk on private businesses over the next 6 to 12 months. So it's kind of what you've talked about is really reinforced what we've been doing. So I think we're on the right path. Thank you.
That's good, and I know Jason's had to be quite, agile and has been fortunate with it in terms of the sort of demand going up from some new areas as well and existing clients. But as you said, I think that's a really good input there, Jason. And I guess that leads me on to plugging, and that telecoms thing will become more of an issue actually in terms of part of your risk management as well, because I've got CEOs, sitting in now, not thinking, actually, I haven't got a good Wi-Fi reception in this lovely house in the countryside that these guys own because they're in a rural setting, and they're going to have to think about their communications going forward because there's going to be more of this. And, Michael, have you got anything else to add before I wrap up?
No, I think that the comments are very valid and certainly added a little bit more to the conversation. Obviously, trying to cram all that into 35 minutes is a bit of a struggle. So it was great to have people expand on it and add on a little bit extra. And I think what you said is what everybody said has been very true. We've all had experiences of some aspect of things I've touched on, and it's learning from that experience and knowing not to make that mistake again. And that's just generally how I kind of make sure that my clients are moving forward, is to make sure that they understand that where they want to get to. I think Paul mentioned about the hill climb. I talk about a sat nav. Here's your starting point. Here's your end point. Here's the route to achieve that journey, and here are the milestones along the way. So if I can keep you on track and moving in a timely manner, you will succeed.
No, absolutely. And if business has got those sort of reference points, I think that's an absolutely key thing to success. So I'll wrap up, and I think, as I said, it probably leads me on to give a wee plug next week for Simon, who we've got here, who's going to be telling us all about how to make impactful videos that generate sales. So that could be something people could do to change and start to reposition as we go forward, because that's a really key area. And Jason's, who's also here, has kindly agreed to do again. We're looking at things that really add value. So what's sometimes seen as a bit of a dark science, which is SEO. Jason's had some real success with his own business, getting to the top of Google with their new product that they're promoting, which is an amazing, I'm sure he'll tell us more about this, but another time, but it's an amazing bit of technology used through I don't know what the exact phone is, but I'll share the link. It's a heat sensor, so it can help businesses identify, maybe people that have got the virus and start to, whether that's in your workplace or in a place where there's actual public there, that you can help run your business. I don't know. I'll give you 10 seconds, Jason, just to tell us a quick bit about that.
Oh, thank you, Damien. So as part of investigating how we can help companies get back to workplaces, we have a partnership with CAT, which is a British designer of smart devices, and they provide a thermal imaging camera within the mobile device. It's called the CAT S61, and it can be used for first stage fever detection and for monitoring in and out of all sorts of different businesses. It's got loads and loads of use cases as well. So it's something we've started to see an increase in sales, has started to promote it. And I managed to get to page 1 in Google search rankings this week, having only published content last week. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that.
So this is a man who knows what he's talking about when it comes to SEO. So really looking forward to that in a couple of weeks' time. And so, sorry, Simon, were you just going to dip in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say that if anybody has clients who are looking for ways to generate new business, that they should send out an invitation to come along to the webinar, because, well, it's free to join, and I can assure you people will learn a lot about how to generate business very economically.
Brilliant. Okay, no, that's ideal. It's exactly what we want. So, finally, just to thank Michael again for such a robust presentation of real value, and thank for everyone who's come along today. Okay, see you soon. Thanks.
Damien, are we doing a photograph?
No, I think we'll just no, we're not. Is the answer?
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.